CRO-AM Connections, connecting with Croatian-Americans through conversation and events to share our culture. Today in our show, we have Nasja Boskovic Meyer. She has a BA in foreign languages. She is a published poet, and she has been teaching the Croatian language and culture for almost 40 years. From St. Louis, Missouri. Thank you all for joining us today, and dobro nam došli. Today on our show, we have Nasja Boskovic Meyer. She has a BA in foreign languages from the University of Missouri in St. Louis and has been teaching Croatian language for almost 40 years. She is a published poet and was a prominent founder of the American Croatian Relief Project, which became the leading group in the U.S. providing assistance for Croatia and Bosnia Herzegovina, which collected over $8 million in aid money, food, and medicine. Nasja is joining us from St. Louis, Missouri today. Welcome, Nasja.
Dobar dan. Hello, I'm glad to be on this program.
Hvala, Nasja. Thank you for coming. So I always start off with a little story about how we met, because that's why I like doing this. I like meeting people and telling stories. And so my wife and I were out in Pittsburgh at the CFU Festival just a few weeks back, and we were setting up a table. We were putting out some merchandise for the St. Nicholas Lodge 6 table, and you were seated next to us. And so we started chatting. I felt like we were asking you a ton of questions, probably maybe you felt like too many questions. I don't know. But I kept saying to myself, you have a great story. And I don't know if you felt sorry for me by the end of the night, or I just convinced you enough to join our podcast, but that's how we got you tonight. And I really appreciate you spending time with us talking about your history.
I also appreciate so much because you and Heather watched the books that I had displayed, and I wanted to go inside and at least see a little bit of the show, the part that my granddaughter was in. And I knew that the books are in good hands, and I like both of you and Heather. A little bit we did the talking, and hope to see you again. And this was a nice surprise to be invited.
No worries. We didn't sell any books, but we did watch the table for you. But let's set up the show like we usually do. We have 3 parts to the show. The first part, we'd like to talk about your family history, and then the second part, we'll go into your teaching career and your writings of poetry, and then into your humanitarian work that we mentioned previously. And then the last part is just talking about your future endeavors, any more books or travel or anything you want to talk about down the road that you're working on. So let's start off by talking about your family history.
Yes, I was born in Croatia. It was Yugoslavia, but my part was Italy. It was during Italian occupation in 1942. And my father worked, he was a judge and young, so at that time he had to go to different cities to work for a period of time, few years, with our mother and the 2 other children. They were born before me, 2 brothers I had. What is interesting that both of them were named after Croatian kings and dukes. My older brother, who unfortunately died last summer, was named Zdeslav, and the younger brother, Mislav. And that was very unusual. My father used to say that in Yugoslavia, in Kingdom of Yugoslavia, and it was a very kind of a risky thing to have. But he was the only one, and my brother that had 2 sons named, not even one. And my brother is probably, when he died at the age of 92, the oldest Zdeslav in Croatia. People think that he was. So
wow.
anyway, my father had a job as a judge on the island of Hvar, at the time of my birth. But my mother always went to Split to her parents to have children. So three of us, firstborn, three were born in Split, and then the war came, and my mother was in Hvar, and she couldn't have my sister. We were just like so many people from Bosnia and Herzegovina, refugees. We were on the island where we lived. We had to go in a village and lived for a year and a half with unknown to us peasants in the mountain, and that is where my sister was born, and our father was in the war, first in Croatian army, the regular domobrani, and after that in prison, and then he joined the last year the partisans. And when the war ended, we returned to Split because my father didn't want to be judge under communism. They made the sentence, gave the sentence, and the judge had to sign. But he became advisor to the people who are mayor of Split, and also the county because of his legal expertise. So we lived in the house where I was born, and that was my grandparents' house in Split that my grandfather and grandmother built, and it was known and still in Split as the first modernistic building in Split in the style of Bauhaus, the German architect.
Bauhaus,
because my mother's brother was then a student of architecture in Prague, and later became known architect in Croatia, and for long time director of urban future of Split, actually more protection of our ancient palace, the Galatian Palace in Split, and all old buildings there. And we all lived in that same house. Each of us had one floor. My mother and father, and my sister and brother, because Mislav died a year before I was born from meningitis. And then on another, one uncle, then another with the family, and the grandparents lived there. So it was a very nice, with extended family. And we went to the same school. Children where our grandparents went to school, grade school. And I finished grade school, then I went to junior high, which was in the same building, but I already started writing poetry, and then after that I went to high school in Split and graduated in 1961 and was valedictorian for my graduating class. And then Split didn't have full university. Today it has, only Zagreb had. And in Split, they started law and chemistry. And I didn't want to study law. Why? That is more like men's at the time. And chemistry, that was too much science. That's not for me. So I wanted what I liked the best, art and history. I told you I would have liked like you, Heather, something, or languages and something like that. But my misfortune was that I was always such a diligent student that even what I didn't like, I wanted to master in order to get good grades. So my father and brother, my mother didn't take part in it. My mother and brother decided, mainly my brother, that I should study economics. Economics in Zagreb, because that was something new, and there was Tito had this he was a leader, Yugoslavia non-alignment movement. Therefore, there were building ports and airports and big buildings in the third world, India, Sri Lanka, Africa, and places like that I'll have interesting life and I can have poetry and other things as hobby. So I was in Zagreb for 2 years and I disliked it so intensely. I cried. Yeah, I cried so much. All my books were wet. Yeah, but I didn't have strength to tell my parents that I don't want to. And so then, the first summer after that, a young man from America came to visit my brother. And my brother, by then, he was already a lawyer. He was 10 years older than me. I was then 20, and he was uh, 30. And he was in America for 2 years because when he was going one time, I don't know, make it long, on a train from Zagreb, University of Zagreb to Split, he met a professor from SIU in Carbondale, Southern Illinois University in Edwardsville. That's the name. No, Carbondale. I'm sorry, Carbondale.
That's okay.
Yeah, in Carbondale. And so my brother lived there for 2 years, finished that, and met this American who became my husband later, but I did not know him. But he didn't want to live in America. He, after that finished, came back and he was corresponding with his friend, and the friend came in summer 1961. And we met. Then my brother took him to Bosnia. He liked very much Bosnia, Franciscan monasteries where he had friends. Zeslav took. And that was all very exotic for the Americans. But he started writing to me. We have never been alone, only just talking at my parents' home. And when I mentioned in the letter how unhappy I was in economics, he said, will you marry me? And if you marry me, you can study whatever you want. It turned out that it was a little bit of false pretext because I couldn't right away. He was a poor young man whose father died when he was young, and he had to go to the army to get a student loan. He just finished master's degree, wanted to go to PhD. So I had to wait, and I had children a year or 2 years after that. And so anyway, I came to America in November the 2nd, 1963.
Oh my.
It's 3, and I was, I don't know how, but it was very, very hard because on the whole continent, I did not know anybody. Yeah. Never have seen anybody. And even my husband, I did not know that well. It became easier when I started having children and I started taking classes little by little. But I couldn't see the end of the light in the tunnel because my bachelor's degree was not coming. I had always, I could have master's degree, maybe even more. And they would give me credit, but you have to take this. And that was the same with community college, university, St. Louis University, Washington University. So I studied a lot of Russian and Spanish, and still not degree. And then finally I did. Because I couldn't drive, I had to go on buses. So it was really like working in the mines. Yeah, and then because of the children, only one class at a time. My parents came to visit me at the time when I was pregnant with Jasna, and that allowed me stay for 2 years to go full time for 2 years. And nice. Then I graduated.
Yeah.
So what am I going to do now? My children are already 10 and 11, and they can go to school. Maybe I will do something. And then while I was contemplating what that will be, my husband got his sabbatical leave, and we all went to Croatia for Yugoslavia then for a year. Our two children, Art and I, Joe, Jasna. And but just before we left, Dean at St. Louis Community College did some survey of the background of the students in the North County of St. Louis. And in addition to the Anglo-Saxon and German, he found out that a huge number have Polish roots, and right after that, Croatian. He easily found somebody to teach. He wanted to have somebody to teach language. Yeah. That was the time when the roots were. That was in mid-70s. When that meant about African roots, and
the movie roots,
very much in among the general population, and so he thought that would be very good to do, and he called me, and I said, I have time before we go to Croatia because we're going in the summer, but I have never taught. I don't know how. I have always been all my life a pupil, a student, but never. And he encouraged me, and then my husband, who was a teacher there and the dean, to do it. And you asked me to include that. What I almost, close my eyes and try to think what the teachers throughout my life, the best teachers I had, we all remember some teachers. Yeah. And they may have been in grade school, in high school, in college, anywhere. And then I did what they did. And that was a very, very good way to do it. Yeah. And then who were my students? They were mainly from a Tamburice group from the church. Who were groups. Singing but did not know what they are singing because they are third generation.
Yeah.
And then a few students from the college, and my husband and children, they allowed even at that time little children to take, but my children were very good already in that. So we went to Croatia, and they said, meanwhile, they'll develop this program to Yugoslavia. Then it was. We forgot Yugoslavia. Things still there. Always Croatia, that we will talk about that. So we stayed there. We went by a Yugoslav freighter and traveled for 45 days to Rijeka and then to Split, where my family lived. And my husband gave different lectures, mainly about study of speech, of communication, oral communication, which was new in Croatia, in Europe. Meanwhile, they had University of Split, which had they had when I was there, I would not have come to America. But anyway, we did that. And then he went also to Belgrade, to Sarajevo, to Ljubljana, and I would go with him because my parents took care of the children. And then we, at the end of the year, we came back, and then I discovered that I'm expecting a third child.
So how old were the kids at that point in time?
Yeah, they were 12 and almost 13. Joe was almost 13 and Jasna was 11. Yeah.
Do they remember that year that
they remember. They were so happy because they went to school there.
Okay.
They went the whole school year. That was the first time. And so then they learned. They were very, very happy and to be with the grandparents. And so then I cried again, always some tears with my studies. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? And then again, this professor called and he said, why don't you, after 1 year, you have that child and then you can teach. And so it was very, very good. Like I mentioned before, when you lose something, you get something else. And this was, I forgot my that I was accepted at Washington University for master's degree and PhD in Spanish. But, that was not something that I liked. Truthfully, I just wanted to get bachelor's degree and do something else that I want.
So how many languages do you actually speak then?
Oh, in Yugoslavia, they have so many languages. Like you understood Slovenian and Macedonian. We did. At home, my grandparents spoke Italian, even though they didn't like Italians. But that was the old generation in Split. They did. Yes, but as quickly as you learn, somebody who likes languages, and you learn, if you don't use it, you really forget it. So I can read Russian well. And when I was a student at University of Missouri, there was an ad that I saw that Speech Association of America is asking anybody who knows Russian and has good grades to apply because Student Council of Soviet Union wants to have debate with American students and the topic ecology. Well, I applied and I was interviewed. That was just before before we went to Yugoslavia then, and I was interviewed in my knowledge of Russian by the phone from the language team in Colorado Springs, the American Air Force Academy.
Oh, yeah.
And I couldn't believe it that I passed. I was chosen, yes, one of the three, and two others they got. And we went for 3 weeks on tour of Soviet Union and spoke in Riga, in Latvia, in Leningrad, St. Petersburg, today.
So you were translating then? Were you translating then?
I didn't hear you.
Sorry, were you translating in Russian then?
No, I did all in Russian. That's what I said. I was so good, even though I have never studied in Croatia. But what I studied for a couple years, 3 years, yes, at St. Louis University and Washington University. And the other candidate who was there, he was a young Jewish, from Russian Jewish extraction, but professor of Russian in Florida at university. So he was the best there. But and the third one was at Yale, a law student, but she didn't know a word of Russian, and she didn't like to go on. She only wanted debate and with the interpreter, and then slept through the whole tour. We went to Mongolia, to Lake Balkan. So that's what I did. So anyway, when we came back after a year, now about my teaching, yes.
So just curious. Just curious. So, Italian, Russian, Spanish, obviously Croatian, English, obviously. So you have at least 6, 7 languages. Then you can. But
it is like when you do one thing, then you can learn easier things that are similar. But I still love so much Croatian that only Croatian is one that interests me, that I love, that I can see any shade and meaning of languages. And that's what you have to have when you write poetry. And I started writing poetry when I was very small. And my father encouraged me, but being a lawyer, he said that I should write the date and possibly place wherever each poem is made. And I thought that is the way it should be. And later people told me of all Croatian poets, nobody does that except Dragutin Tadijanovic. I don't know if you heard him. That's my favorite. Yeah, an old man. He lived to be 107 or something, died maybe 5, 6 years ago. And I do that. I like that. And my brother found, at that time I was maybe 13, 14, he was 10 years older, a girlfriend of his typed older. So I had them all neatly typed. And then I continued writing poetry in America. whenever I was sad, lonely, about my family, about smells of the old country and sights and that. And also, I spoke only Croatian to my children,
Ah,
and that was so nice. I remember the youngest one when because I was speaking to somebody else, and I said to him something in English, and he said, "Ne, mama, ne govori tako, govori slatko. No, mommy, don't speak like that. Speak sweetly." Yeah, he thought that English is a harsh language of other people, and his mother should speak just like they say, mother tongue. So if your mother
yeah,
is Croatian like you know, and was your mother Croatian, Scots mother? I don't know. Yes.
yeah. She was, yeah. Heather's and Scott's mother was, yeah, she was Croatian,
Yes. So
part
you
Croatian.
learn. Our grandmothers, yeah, they
Yeah,
teach children that,
yeah.
and our children are now grown. It would have been tomorrow 63 years that I got married to my husband,
Oh,
and
wow.
my Joe is 61. Oldest, he's physician, anesthesiologist, and then
Ah,
Jasna, whom you met, she's PhD and college professor, and Mato, the youngest. I don't know, is it because I came from that year in Croatia with him inside of me, but he always felt he's only Croatian, always wanted to go back to his roots. And so he did. And
oh, good for
he,
him.
after he finished, he studied in Georgetown University, and then at Yale, at Banach. He was a doctorate student for Ivo Banac, the famous
Hmm.
historian at Yale. But he fell in love with a Serbian girl and went to Serbia and lived there and had 3 children and worked for United Nations.
Oh, wow.
And now he is in moving to Warsaw but his main job is in that contested area in Kosovo, in Pristina.
Oh, that's got to be
Um,
tough.
yes, and about the poetry, I wrote. Sorry, you want to say something?
No, I was just going to say you were heading into your poetry, and I just wanted to say, you mentioned that you started at a young age, but you didn't mention that you received a lot of awards too for your poetry at the young age, right?
Yeah, yes, yeah. You know what? Maybe because I never, even today, I don't need much sleep, even as a child. And my sister would sleep in a bed next to me, and sometimes moonlight and sleep, you cannot sleep. You start reciting little poems that the teacher makes, and then to myself I would, and then I would say, oh, I can make it different. Yeah, so I would make
Oh,
another one. And so that's how I started until I started writing them down. And then when I was about 12, 13, a teacher of Croatian in junior high saw them, and he sent them to Vidik, which was very respected literary magazine for young people. And
yeah.
they had a section, prvi koraci, first steps for the beginners. So for young.
Yeah.
And he sent, and my 2 poems won first prize. Yeah. And
Yeah.
then I started sending, and almost every time my poems won. And they would say how the older ones are good, but the young Boskovic has stronger steps in in poetry, something like that. I don't know, but I
Yeah.
never thought of that will be my. You know what? I never wanted, because I wanted to be a normal human being, to have husband and children and be housewife and clean the house and cook, and which I do. First of all, that's my main goal. And all the rest is hobby. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And and wanted to have children, and that is all the hardest, but that is the best. So, yeah,
but
having
your
husband, good husband and home.
But your hobby, you wrote 2 books of poems. I mean, that's not a hobby.
Yes, because we would be reading them when I was in high school. They call it Tribina Mladih, like a stage for the young to come. And they're all boys, and many of them kind of like, not hippies yet, but like, a little bit too, different. Yeah. And I was the only girl. And some of them, I could say they didn't like that I am there and didn't like that I get awards because I talk, awards because I get with soft stanzas and topics about nature, about family, about love, about that. And they do all about the doom, the end of the world. Yeah. So anyway, some of them became good poets, but I don't think I'm mainly a poet. My first one was published in the 80s in Split, and the editor was the second president of Croatia, Ivo Sanader. After Tudjman died. But he, unfortunately, at that time, he was such a nice man Croatian, who grew up in Vienna, very learned and kind, but he was in some kind of a briberies and that. So he left a very bad memory in history of Croatian politics, but he was my editor. And then when I was 80, my second book of poetry, it's called 5 Rubina Crvenih, which means 5 red rubies. And what I have here, that is a necklace that my husband gave me on our 45th wedding anniversary, and it has 5 rubies. He and I and 3 children. But he died when we were married 45 and a half, a little bit more. So this is why I gave that title to the poem, and
Could you read us? Could you read us a poem? Could you read us a poem or 2? Would you mind?
Yes, I will read you. And they, you and I talked before. I told you how I dislike to translate poetry or reading poetry in translation, which you must if you don't know the language. But even if you know a little bit, it's better to try. And then I even forgot that in this book, Croatia, the country and the language, we have some poems at the beginning before we start the lesson, and one is mine, and my Joseph Joe, he translated it into Croatian. So I will read it. But this was written before I came to America. I was married and of course didn't have any children or sign of them, but desire to have them and to teach them Croatian. And it's short. Pred odlazak u Ameriku. Pitaće me o ovoj zemlji, a ja ne bih govorila. Volim šudjeti kad volim, a ja volim sve ovo o čemu će i moji sinovi znati i prije nego budu i sami voljeli. Pitaće me o mojoj zemlji, a ja ljepotu ostavljam netaknutu. O njoj ne pričam jer je lijepa i tu se ne da ništa učiniti. Moji sinovi će se rađati s plačem na mom jeziku. In English, before departing for America, they will ask me about this land, and I would rather not say. I like to keep silent when I love, and I love Love all this that my sons will know even before they start to love on their own. They will ask me about my land, but I leave the beauty untouched. About it, I do not talk, because it is beautiful, and here one can't do a thing. My sons will come forth in birth with a cry in my language. And I think they did. Yeah, and I did have two sons. My daughter said, "Why do you say sons? Is that metaphor for children?" I said, "Yes, in our countries, yeah, everybody wants to have a son, and I wanted two, and So anyway, so that is. If we have time, we have one called Croatia, but we can another.
Let's. If you have another one, please.
Yeah. This is Croatia. It has not been published except in Zajedničar and in some magazines because I was thinking maybe I will have one more
book. That's coming. That's a conversation.
It's called, I don't know, that's asking too much. It's called Hrvatska. And it's dedicated to mom bratu Zdeslavu I sestri Jasni. My sister is called Jasna, that's why my daughter is Jasna. We'll see if two of you can understand. Čujem govore da si malena, premalena. Žele neku veliku zemlju, moćnu i mučnu, sveobuhvatnu, vjeru daleko, duboko zatomljenu. Hrvatski jezik išaran tuđicama. O, tužna Hrvatska. Djece se u tebi sve manje rađa, stari odlaze suđenim putem, mladost u velike bogate zemlje, o, mala moja Hrvatska. Čujem, govore da si smjerna, starinska, silno osiromašena, spuštenih vijeđa, preveć domoljubna. Htjeli bi neku bučnu, prometnu zemlju, o stara Hrvatska. Mi, koji te ljubimo takovu kakva jesi, i iz daljine i iz blizine, ostajemo iznova, bez daha, nagnuti nad ljepotom tvojih čarobnih svetih zalazaka i sigurnih svitanja. O ljubka mala Hrvatska. U sićušnoj škatulici blješti dragulj. O mila naša domovino.
Yeah, so I you say it's a hobby, but you're published twice over, maybe 3 times now. And I was reading an article, Nasja, where I just want to read this. It's a quote, but I'm paraphrasing the quote. It was an article on the Crown Croatian World Network, and it was a quote from Mladen Vukovic. He was a reporter, and he's maybe still a reporter from Radio Split.
Yes,
I don't know.
Radio Split.
Radio Split, yeah. So he says this, and I paraphrase: "This is a breakaway from our existing immigrant poetry. Nasja abandons pedestrian tradition, classical verse, and the cliché of cheap pathos. In an intimate and contemporary beat, she turns to the homeland and Split as a well and spring for her inspiration." That I think that says everything about you. I think you're very genuine in your passion about your writings and about Hrvatska, your family, right? It's very passionate and real, and I think that quote is stating that in a different way. And so I it's more than a hobby, Nasja. It's more than a hobby. You are a gifted writer. You're a gifted poet, and you should welcome that. And I think people should appreciate you for that.
Well, I think if you like nature, our parents took us always to the hikes in the nature. You have to start developing, noticing birds and trees and smell of earth, or if you live in the country. I think Bosnia, and you were probably you can tell that how you as a child, I'm sure, had some did writing too.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yes.
I'm not talented as you are. So let's not go. But you have, I think, 8 grandchildren, right? Is that correct?
Molim?
You have 8 grandchildren?
3 children.
Grandchildren.
Grandchildren. Yes. And I have 8 grandchildren, and the very firstborn, who is named Nasja. She wrote poetry. Hers, you should have her.
You had a special moment with her.
She's much better than I. She's just because she's just so talented, so talented. I told you how surprised that I am that she's now doctor of dental dentistry.
Yeah. But you had a special moment with her back in 2015. You and her did an event in Split. We
went to Split. Yes.
Yeah, talk about that a little bit. That sounds fun.
Yes. After the independence, during the communism, they couldn't have private schools because before that there were mainly Catholic private schools. They all closed. As soon as Croatia became independent, they started thinking about opening. And there was a man in Split, he and his wife wanted to found on their own private high school. And they needed help from my brother because he was in United States. And my brother brought my husband. And Jasna was part of that team, a little bit but I'm always more busy with household. And they helped this man and his wife found the high school, which was located in a historical part facing Diocletian Palace from 4th century before Christ. Yeah, and in a very nice location, a very simple school, but it's called Kraljica Jelena after the first Croatian queen. Jelena, and as gratitude, they said that my grandchildren can come free of tuition. And my children are already older. So then I told Nasja, Baba will take you to Split. Will you come? And she did. And she and I lived in our house where I was born. And she would walk to school. And she was so happy about that. And she was in the school with a son of some pop singers. Maybe you know Croatian. What was the name? Giboni. I don't know if you know that. No. He's not like Dragojevic, but anyway, because some. And she published her poems in a association that I belong. It's called HIL, Croatian. Hrvatska iseljenička lirika, Croatian immigrant lyrics. And a Croatian lady in Astoria, New York, 25 years ago, founded that. And I belong, and she came along with that and read one poem, and they wanted her to join it. And so then she published in their annual literary magazine, Nasja. But I liked so much how she said something, I don't know it by heart, but when you are in Croatia, when you are in Split, you have eyes, but if you are born there, you have also eyes, but you don't see. Only if you are Croatian who is not born. You don't see how women are beautiful, even pigeons are nice and fat, the bread is good. But she wrote in such a way that it is so good, And she did more about meaning of life, and I don't want to go to that. I want to be always optimistic that this life is forever.
No, I just saw the article on it, and I thought it was a great moment that
The
she was able to
audience
do that.
loved her.
Yeah,
Yes, when we had in a city library, they
yeah,
just love her just because she's an American. And then
yeah.
her parents were divorced, so she talked about divorce and all those topics. And so that's why newspapers said that Baba writes only about love for Croatia and the granddaughter, all the other topics. Yes.
So we're going to keep talking about writing because you've written a few language courses, and your daughter, Dr. Jasna Meyer McCarthy, was a co-author in some of the language courses materials that you've
Yes,
written.
yes,
So
yes.
let's talk about your language courses. You started talking
Let
about
me,
how.
that language course is a product of my teaching. When I was teaching Croatian, when I came back from Croatia, I was the only one teaching that, and I had beginning class and intermediate class. And we advertised, and people were coming. There were mainly at that time people who had some connection with Croatia, roots, maybe one ancestor. And then there were people who worked with Croatian, and then there were Serbs, but all from Croatian area. So the language was the same. Very few times I had from Serbia proper. We advertised it as Croatian, but I would help with Cyrillic if they wanted. But mainly there were Croatians. When the war started, I had so many students, I didn't know what to do with them because everybody, or they fell in love with somebody from former Yugoslavia, or they worked with immigrants that came. And and they were very, very helpful to American Croatian Relief Project. Some of them turned out to be very wealthy people, like a Robert family. Mrs. Roberts' grandparents were Croatian, and her husband was very rich, and they gave money for New Croatian Hall, and for the war effort, and after that too. And some had husbands, like one lady had a husband who was the head of Budweiser International Sales.
Oh, wow.
So he would put ad for a beer for our concert when Lado came, the well-known folklore group from Croatia. And when we had a Letterman concert, I never heard about the Lettermans. Have you heard?
No.
That was a group. You are too young, but that time older people knew. They were, I don't know when, in the 40s or something, 50s.
Okay.
And one of the singer, original Tony Butala, was from Stilton, Pennsylvania.
Yeah. Oh, my.
And so then they thought if they bring them, then Croatians will come. And they did. And for one night, we made $40,000 for that. For that to give to Croatia for Croatian, buy ambulances and things like that. And then Croatian group, American Croatian Relief Project, and my husband and I were the founders with the others. First, the Klaric family, and then a few others. But there were 5 or 6 of us. But who came? Have you heard about John Rukavina? He's the father, now deceased, of Steve Rukavina from National Federation of American Croatians in Washington, D.C. He came, apparently he went through all Croatian colonies to organize people in 1991 to do something about this. And I don't know if we should go into that, but even the name, how to call organization. And my husband was so good. He was the only American who didn't have anything, any roots. And he said, let's call it Croatian American War Relief Project. One Croatian from Herzegovina said, war will finish. We want to work later. Let's drop war. And he said, yes. My husband, that's smart. But even before that, even this group of Croatian patriots didn't want to cut tie with Serbs, with Yugoslavia. They want to put Serbo-Croatian, American, Croatian, Serbian, or Yugoslav American. And that my husband stormed out and left this meeting, and the priest was there. And the priest called me that night and he said, if it was not for my husband, because he was American, he could say, this is the war, Serbs are enemies, Yugoslavia is going to be disintegrated. We have to call it what it is, call a spade, Croatia. And he said he did it. So there are so many behind the scene things that I'm so glad I had a husband. That I married my husband and came here, and that he worked for Croatia like that. And then in 1994, when the war was going to end, there was some kind of a light on in the tunnel. Croatia was chosen Croatia, St. Louis was chosen for the city where representatives of all Croatian political and cultural groups came to St. Louis, and I was delegate for our American Croatian Relief Project, and they founded this umbrella organization that's still in existence in Washington, D.C., Steve Rukavina. He was there. Did you see him?
Yeah, the NFC.
Okay, I only saw in his cards that they added. It's called National Federation of Croatian-Americans and Cultural Foundation. Yes. So that's about that. And then, I'm sorry, we started saying about that, the students, and how did I teach? We talked about, you and I, about grammar, how it is very difficult, Croatian grammar.
Extremely difficult.
Extremely difficult, especially present tense, and worst of all are cases. And if you learn from your parents, you speak correctly, that's not a sign of education. It's right. It's like music, tune of a song you learn. But if you don't, you have to study so long. And I could tell how they were so frustrated because they are smart. Some of them were, learn people are very smart and they cannot get it. So we would talk about different things, about jokes, about food, food in Croatia, about they would bring show and tell, a letter from back home, a picture, something like that. And then that became very, very kind of a relaxation It was easier to learn. And then at the end, they would get diplomas, and we would have a dinner where before diploma, they had to say a joke in Croatian or recite a poem and try to translate it. And we had it in Croatian restaurant, and now we don't have any Croatian restaurants. I hear that even Bosnians are closing theirs because that's hard work, to make money. But there was a Medic, the last Croatian restaurant we had, sometimes in Croatian church we had. And so that was. So anyway, the textbooks we are using were not adequate because they all were or too simple or too complicated. And so then I would always have to give them handouts. And one student said, several, but this one said, I have to write my own book. Then the other said, yes, we will help you. I said, I don't know how to type. Or so. You will help you. You just have to write a book the way you teach Croatian. So this is what you have. Yeah, there is a little of grammar, and then there is something to amuse you.
Yeah,
and I think it worked. And a newspaper in Australia, Melbourne Herald, I think it was called. I think it's not published anymore. They said that this is probably the best Croatian language book ever published in diaspora.
Oh, that's excellent.
Yeah, because from Croatia they send us the books and they are nice, but one too simple and the other one too difficult. And Dr. Vinko Grubišić wrote one. That one is in a difficult category if you want to major in Croatian. But just to learn, you wouldn't need anything more advanced than those two volumes.
And it's not just a language course. It's, as you pointed out, it's called The Country and the Language. So you learn about the country.
Yes.
And as you learn about the language as well.
Yeah. And then it is organized as a travelogue, as if person is traveling through Croatia and then visiting different places. And then one village that they visit is the village where has the most number of Croatian in St. Louis. It's small, godforsaken village Vukmanići near Karlovac, where this very, very wealthy ladies' ancestors came. And so many. And then I asked in Pittsburgh, there are some from Vukmanići. And just the name Vuk, that means wolf.
Wolf, yeah.
And our proverb says, when you want to say like godforsaken place, you said, where the Vuk, where now I forgot, but where wolf rings the bell and fox calls that what time is in the village. Yeah, so they're only animals. Yeah. So Vukman. Yeah.
But you published your first language course. That was did I get this right? 1998, and then you republished just recently in 2018. Is that correct?
Yeah, I bought it. I started writing it in 98, and it took me 2 years. And it was it came out in 2000. 2000, yeah. 2000. And then we have different edition. Actually, they are revisions. Whatever changed in Croatia, the name of the president, the fact that Croatia is part of European Union, then kuna is not anymore used. We had to change. And then, of course, we always find some mistakes too.
Yeah.
So that's why we have several. And at the beginning, when I was teaching, then I had that spiral, for studying. And then I saw that people like the luxury, with nice paper, because they give for graduation, for first communion, confirmation, for their children, for wedding. It's more like a coffee table book, but it's useful because you can learn the language.
Yeah. That's lovely. And you've sold.
We guarantee all the books can be returned. I told you.
But nobody's returned them yet, so that's saying something.
Nobody has ever returned, and nobody wrote bad check. I think I can.
But you sold not just in the States and Canada, but you sold, I think, in Australia, New Zealand, South America, and even in Hrvatska and Croatia.
In South America, we did.
Yeah, it's so you're well known and well traveled in your writings, but and we'll at the end we'll let people know how to get a hold of you and how to look up the books. But your future endeavors, what you teased us with maybe a third.
Maybe a third, but very, very small. That's what we're thinking of. Maybe still do just few translation, like, people who want to study Croatian and poetry, maybe only a dozen poems. One side Croatian, but I don't know. I would have to have still another 10 years. I don't know.
You have plenty of time.
Young people to review, and I'm only in my heart. Yes, and energy, always energy.
You have plenty of time, and I'm curious. Is the Bauhaus, the house still in the family? Your original?
Yes,
Oh, that's
yes.
lovely. Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't nationalize because my grandparents were well-off merchants that started on their own, and they were making shoes and selling fur coats. My grandfather
Wow.
would go to Hungary, Romania, that was a long time ago, Bosnia, and buy
Wow.
fur, and then they would do that. But the climate is so, you cannot sell that so much. Or the shoes, they made money making opanke. Do you know what opanci are?
Yeah, yeah. It's the dancing shoes,
The
the opa,
peasant shoes.
the peasant shoes. But you wore, yeah, we wore 'em for dancing, but they were peasant shoes, right?
Yeah, yes, and you don't. And because their house is leaning on their occasion, their first house where they had business and where they lived when my mother and her sister and brothers were small, has three roofs, and the fourth is the occasion palace. And that one they nationalized, but then they left the lower now for the cousins. But the
Ah,
others that they had for rental, they nationalized. But the one, Bauhaus, because the family lived in it. So we never got from government any apartments. You know how it was in Bosnia, in Croatia,
yeah.
where you work, you wouldn't have a large salary, but you would get an apartment. So we never asked, would not ask, wouldn't get. We lived in something that my grandparents made. So that's nice.
Yeah,
It's very
yeah.
nice because it's overlooking Bašvice beach. Yeah,
Ah,
yeah. But only it's hard to be sitting on two seats at the same time, being here and being there. Yeah.
it's tough. It's tough. I'm sure there's a draw a lot in your heart. There's a draw, and as well emotionally, just
Yes, I
the
always
love of
thought,
country
like
and family.
everybody else, that you can go back when you're old, but always the same story. The children are
Yeah,
here.
yeah,
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 one is for me there. Yeah.
yeah. Well, I'm going to let people know that if they're interested in learning Croatian language or want to read Nasja's poetry, they can purchase the courses and the books online at croatiagifts.com, or you can email Nasja's daughter Jasna Meyer at gmail.com, and we'll put this up in the broadcast so it's
And they can call me. I
and they
don't
can
mind.
call
I
you.
like talking to people who want to get book, and then they call me. I tell if you like it, and they call me after that and send you letters to translate. So it's very very friendly, very kind of a humane business.
Yeah, yeah, and they can
That's
call
all
you.
what I can do. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll put the number up there too, but I'll just say it for those folks listening. It's 314-727-0747. So they can, again, Croatia Gifts or Jasna Meyer at Gmail, or call you directly,
Yeah.
and they can have a pleasant conversation with you as well, from the author's mouth to their ears. So Nasja, I really want to thank you for taking time. It's been lovely. It's a real pleasure to talk to you. We loved meeting you in Pittsburgh. Love talking to you tonight. Hopefully we'll be able to get out to St. Louis and have dinner with you on our treat, just to spend some more time with you, because you have a lovely family, and
Thank you very
your
much. It was
story
my pleasure
is a great story.
to meet both of you and your brother-in-law, and I hope to see you all in St. Louis. Thank you very much. Yeah.
So what we're going to do here is just to wrap up. What we do here is wrap up another episode to say thank you, Punafala, to all of our CRO-AM followers for tuning in, and to Filthy 46 Productions for their editing and production expertise. So until next time, živeli Hrvati, veliki poz I Bog. If you have appreciated this interview or past interviews, or if you know of someone that we should interview, please feel free to reach out to us via email at croamconnections@gmail.com. You can listen to our podcast on Spotify, Apple, and other podcast platforms. along with watching us on our YouTube channel or following us on Facebook and Instagram at CRO-AM Connections. And don't forget to like and subscribe, and remember, please support all local and non-local Croatian-American events wherever they are. Thanks and appreciation to Nasja Boskovic Meyer for being our guest, Jasna Meyer and Patrick McCarthy for coordinating, Filthy 46 Productions, and as always, our CRO-AM followers.
Hvala.